Hello YouTube. It's been a while. A long while. But I would like to continue my assessment of some of the past current events that relate to my concept of sovereignty and the power that is inherent within the utilization of that word as it pertains to our human rights. I believe that human rights offer us a degree of sovereignty that is often neglected, misunderstood, and not fully comprehended as the essence that it really is. A man can suddenly be assaulted for no reason at all, and when he utilizes the strength that is inherent within him to repel that assault, then he becomes justified in the ability to instantly halt a conflict that is steeped in violence that could be life taking. Now, when he responds to that attack and repel that attack by using either the equal force or a greater force to the force that is then perpetrated against him, then he has perpetrated the right to defend himself. The right is inherently his. If he relied upon an outside source to defend his right to continue breathing and utilizing the gifts that come with life in general, then his life is suddenly subject to be taken. Now, in him responding to that force and defending himself, then he is establishing that he is a man. He is establishing and presenting to whoever happen to be in that area that he is well capable of defending himself. No one can dispute the force that he utilized. It could be an equal force to the force that is then deliberately perpetrated against him, or it could be a greater force. In any manner that he chooses to defend himself, completely becomes justified. Now, as that pertains to sovereignty, sovereignty is the sum total of our human rights. Now, we don't just have human rights to just walk around town and interact with people and consider that the sanctity for life will offer us a degree of safety. We cannot in any wise feel compelled to believe that the societal forces that come in the guise of law enforcement will be utilized instantly in our defense. If we are disillusioned to the fact where we believe such a delusionary, self-gratifying, totally stupid assessment, then it's a wonder we still walking above ground. Maybe because we haven't found ourselves in a life-threatening crisis that require for us to utilize equal, if not greater, force than the force that is being perpetrated against us. But in any case, we are utilizing a degree of sovereignty in defending our right to be left alone, in defending our right to oppose any force that is viewed and considered a threat to our life in general. We have utilized that which is our sovereign right, the right to defend ourselves. Now, the reason why I went in that manner, went as far as to explain the degree of my understanding of what sovereignty is to state this. In some ways, the utilization of civil rights have diminished the sovereignty of our human rights. It has diminished that in this context. We as a race of people are supposedly told that our civil rights offer us a degree of safety from violence being inflicted upon us according to our ethical, hereditary, cultural origins. Now, there are many of us that are planted in the local, natural, national cemetery because we was led to believe that to the extent where we fail to utilize an equal or greater force towards the utilization of our right to remain above ground. Now, in many of us who have been, whose life has been expunged because we believe that to the degree where it literally disarmed us of the means of utilizing the means necessary to define and discern that danger and utilize the experience that we inherently earned through the accumulation of years on this earth pose a danger to many. Some of us have been so convinced that the laws of the land offer us a degree of protection that we have been domesticatedly tamed to the extent where we can not only not be able to respond to the evident, more clearly seen aspects of danger, but we have become so domestically, complacently tamed that we can't even respond to the dangers that we don't see with the natural eye, with which result in us being totally blind to the dangers that we see with the natural eye. Now, I would like to put that in the context of Malcolm X espousing a degree of self-determination that has earned him a place in history. I also like to put it in the context of Louis Farrakhan and his controversial stance in behalf of his friend Muammar Gaddafi. One of the reasons why I would like to utilize them examples is to affirm that we cannot be so disillusioned into thinking that our concept of human rights limit the responsibilities that come with the utilization of them human rights. Now, there has been many acts of violence perpetrated against men of African descent. there have been violence perpetrated against men of African descent, not only by those that feel that we have no rights whatsoever, but violence has been perpetrated against us by members of our own race that has a degree of self-hate that is perpetrated through acts of violence. Now, the violence that ensue from that degree of self-hate has resulted in mass number of men of African descent whose lives have been violently expunged from the societal scene of a war that is never ending in the limitless episodes that result in the violence expungement of black life. Now, there are some members of our race who are so astutely aware of their surroundings that they have narrowly escaped being violently deposited into the local cemetery. Now, they have developed a means of instantly responding not only to dangers that are self-evident to the natural eye, but danger that is not readily subject to exposure by the natural eye. Now, what I'm saying is this: they are in a guarded state, a state that enables them to not only respond to danger, but respond to perceived actions that they compare to a violent confrontation that is in the wings or a violent confrontation that is imminent. Now, they exercise force or a force greater than the force being perpetrated against them. Now, in them responding in that way, they are able to stave off circumstances, or they are able to accordingly respond to them acts of violence being perpetrated against them in a way that in many cases guarantee at least another day above ground. Now, they respond in a manner that is strictly voluntarily perpetrated in order to not only repel that violence that could result in their death, but at the same time they are establishing among that societal battlefield that they are involuntarily subject to, that they are well able of repelling any threat that is directed towards them. Now, some people live such a sheltered life, they couldn't even conceive of finding themselves in a situation like that. Some avoid that in a manner that is hysterically disarming to them as an individual, because they avoid it to such an extent that when they find themselves subject to no means of avoiding it, then they are subject to a violent end because they have never prepared for that type of conflict.